Okay, my name is Alan Journey. I am one of the co-facilitators of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now, and you can see I'm wearing my SOCAN shirt. And the other co-facilitator is sitting right here, and you will be hearing much more from Kathy towards the end of the program. Welcome to the program. I hope you enjoy this. We are hoping to get back to face-to-face in a few months, but we are still a little nervous about that. Before we get to the program, a few comments about Zoom tips. We would like you, please, to mute yourself now and stay muted during the program. We will have a Q&A period after the presentation, but we're doing it as follows. Please open the chat, and when you have opened the chat and you have questions, please write your questions into the chat and hit the return, and they will go to everybody, and then we'll have Laurie Kaplan reading the questions out for our speaker, Cherise Bach. This presentation, as you probably have already gathered, is being recorded and will be available on the SOCAN website for those who would like to catch up with it later, or maybe like to see it again. Our customary acknowledgement is we like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land most of us are on today, particularly those of us in the Rogue Valley, and that is the Tacoma, Shasta, Klamath, and Modoc, and we acknowledge and pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. The meeting format, following the introduction brief, will be a presentation, which you have seen from Cherise Bach, followed by Q&A, and then the last 5 to 10 minutes of the program will involve Kathy running through SOCAN programs and the activities of other organizations engaged in climate activity. Links to action items that are mentioned during the program or which are relevant to the program will be available. They are available, I think, now at socan.eco/action. Under collective action, you will see faith-based/interfaith, and that's where any links to actions that you might engage are going to be posted or will be posted. I'd like now to introduce Estelle Vola, who has been, along with Laurie Kaplan, organizing this evening's presentation. So over to you, Estelle.
Thank you, and welcome to all. I would like to introduce Cherise Bach. She's a lifelong Oregonian who has mostly lived in the Willamette Valley, and she also lived for a year in Ashland teaching in the area. Her work is at the intersection of religion and climate justice. Cherise holds a Master of Divinity degree, as well as a Master of Science in Environmental Studies, and she is now finalizing her PhD in Environmental Studies. She works half-time for Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, leading Oregon Interfaith Power and Light, and she also teaches courses on religion and environmental justice at the college and master's levels. A Quaker minister, Cherise's publications include an edited volume on Quakers, creation care, and sustainability, publications relating to watershed discipleship, and the article Climatologists, Theologians, and Climate Change Toward an Eco-Theology of Critical Hope. Cherise lives in Newberg, Oregon with her spouse, 2 kids, a dog, a cat, and 7 chickens. The chickens live outside, however. Welcome, Cherise.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be with you all and to get to share this time together. Thanks for the invitation to join you. I'm glad to be able to see some faces that I know and some new faces as well. So tonight I'm going to share a little bit about the work that we do in the state of Oregon relating to faith communities and climate and environmental concerns, as well as some of the ways that you might think about connecting with people of faith in your area if you're interested in reaching out to people of faith, and or if you're a person of faith and interested in how to engage more deeply in climate and environmental issues, this will give you some ideas as well. So I'm hoping there will be some overlap there where everyone will learn something and learn how to get connected and involved more fully. So um, I think I want to start out just with a brief sense of connection and gratitude to the land that we're on. So I wonder if people would just take a moment to be still and take a few deep breaths and think about something from the natural world or your experiences with other species or the land this week that you've been grateful for. So what's one thing from this last week that you've been grateful for in relation to the land or another species? Take a brief pause to consider that and be grateful. You might type it into the chat as well. Thank you. I got a few coming into the chat. Wildflowers and tame flowers as well. Birds singing, bees in your flower patch, trees, everything blooming in the garden. I was grateful this week for the sunshine here and that it wasn't 116 degrees this week like it was last year at this time, but that we got to feel like it's really turned the corner to sunshine and being out and getting some good vitamin D. So I think that ability to pause and connect and hold gratitude for the connections that we have with the other parts of the natural world is something that spiritual and faith communities can offer to the environmental movement more broadly. And so for me, that's something that is really important in my own work and in my own sense of how to do climate and environmental justice work is making sure we stay grounded, we stay connected, we remember why we're doing this work, and continue to hold hope and joy even in the midst of our grief and sense of loss as we see the world that we love being damaged. And so hopefully that's something that you can hold with you and take with you as well. Just that simple ability to stop and reflect and connect. So my own journey in climate justice really stems from my faith tradition. I'm a Quaker, and so I grew up hearing about Quakers from my denominational history who stood up for social justice causes in the past. Quakers were some of the first people in the United States to speak out against slavery and worked a lot on abolition of slavery, worked for women's rights, the women's right to vote, and other rights for women, which are in the news again this week, of course. And and the choice to try to resolve conflicts peacefully instead of violently. So all of those things are important to me, but I was kind of thinking about, well, what is the social justice issue of our time? What's the thing that I'm really drawn to work on in my own lifetime? And I noticed that, if we don't have a planet to live on that's healthy and safe for everyone, all of those conflicts, all of those justice issues become worse and become more difficult to deal with, and end up harming the people with the least power and the least space in society. So that was what really got me into working on environmental issues. I already cared about the environment, but I hadn't really made the connection to social justice until I was in my mid-20s and was kind of trying to discern which direction to go with my career path. And so kind of started focusing on environment and climate issues. And so my hope is that people of faith who have communities that are kind of already built in can be a really good place for some of this climate justice work to happen and to be kind of birthed out of as congregations and faith communities become aware and become more conscious of the need to care for our planet together. Um, as the Pope Francis put it, the earth is our common home. And so, thinking of this as our common home, the only one we've got. So we need to do the work to care for it, which is caring for the other people, loving our neighbors as ourselves, as well as caring for the other species and making sure that we leave this place in at least as good of a way as we found it into future generations. So that's how I got into this work. And so, as was shared, I work for Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, leading Oregon Interfaith Power and Light. So I'll share a little bit about that work and the types of work that we do in the state, as well as some examples of people in other parts of the country, other parts of the world who are people of faith working on climate issues. So you can get kind of a sense of the types of things that people are doing. But first, I wanted to kind of ground this in the justice framework that I was talking about a little bit. And this comes from the Jewish tradition, and the Christians also utilize this from the Hebrew Bible, the idea of shalom, the holistic community that is a sustainable community of care. And I think it really is similar to the triple bottom line of sustainability, where you have people, planet, and economy or profit sort of in balance together. And when you've got all of those in balance, you have sustainability. And that also includes that it is bearable, equitable, and viable. It's viable for the continuation of life. So that kind of triple bottom line of sustainability is also what comes out of the Jewish and Christian traditions of this idea of a shalom community that is not just for people, but is also for the land and includes a balanced and equitable economy. And so that's the framework that I'm working out of. When I work with people in an interfaith context, we don't all come from a Jewish or Christian tradition, but at least my own tradition sees that vision of a shalom community as including all the rest of the species and the land here on this planet. And for Christians, I think the work in front of us is really broad and convicting because of here in the United States and other places that have been colonized by Christian nations. They based land theft and slavery on the doctrine of discovery, which was a series of papal bulls in the 15th century. So basically documents created by popes in the 15th century to sanction land seizure by nations, by Christian nations, if the land was not peopled by Christians already. And slavery was considered a way to help bring people to Christianity. So people were enslaved so that they could be taught about Christianity, and then lands were taken if they were not considered to be Christian. A Christian colonist or like explorer could claim the whole watershed when they discovered the mouth of a river, which of course they're not discovering it. They're not the first people to discover it, but if they're the first person from a Christian nation to discover it, they can claim that whole watershed when they claim the mouth of the river. And so this set off a system of land and property rights that established that only white propertied men could vote and own land. Propertied men could own land, I guess, but yes, could vote, and that it really set up a system where then the power and the land and the resources were passed on to white propertied men based on the laws that they created for themselves. And so this was thought about as manifest destiny, as God opening up this land for Christians to be able to have this beautiful space that they didn't understand how the people who already lived here were managing it. So they thought it was just empty land. And this idea of colonialist missions, labor and resources to support the European empires at the time, and then as the United States has become its own empire, that kind of expansionism into other lands as well. So for Christians working on climate and environmental issues, there's a lot of repentance and repair work that needs to be done to recognize the harm that was done by the church and the state working together to oppress people and to capture resources and based create this extractive economy that we continue to struggle under to this day. So for myself, that's convicting and important to acknowledge, and to then change from that kind of extractivist mindset, that hierarchy of humanity being above all the other creatures, and white males being above females and people of color and other people from marginalized groups, to an eco model where we see ourselves as humanity as participants in the rest of the creation or the interaction of this species with one another in an ecology that works for everyone. So shifting a mindset from that doctrine of discovery of claiming and conquest and extraction to participation and working with and working alongside the other species. So that's kind of the basis for my work as a person of faith, trying to help folks who are people of faith to kind of shift their framework from ego to eco, and from extraction to participation and healing. So my work at Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon and leading Oregon Interfaith Power and Light, the 4 areas that we focus on are education, advocacy, action, and relationship building. And so I'll talk a little bit about each of those ones, but for the most part, education is obviously about learning about the faith basis for caring for creation. And so educating people about that at least from a Christian perspective, or opening opportunities for people to learn from other faith traditions. Advocacy in speaking up for just, equitable, and sustainable public policies at different levels of government. Action, that this can be on congregational building and grounds, or relating to transportation and other sustainable changes in our own personal or collective lives, and activism. And then relationship building, we encourage congregations to have green teams and to join together to have regional circles. So I'll go into each of those a little bit more deeply. We hold events such as each year we have in January an Interfaith Earth Summit. This is the information from our one this last January, where we had a focus on flourishing in a time of climate crisis. So we talked about helping to participate in resilient communities, and especially disaster response and preparation for coming disasters, how the faith communities can be involved in that. So every year we have kind of a different theme for that Interfaith Earth Summit. We have some environmental justice webinars. I'm open to visiting faith communities, and we have resources, educational resources on our website and in our newsletter. We do a pretty big push for people to do something educational during Earth Week every April. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to learn about the connection between their faith and environmental and climate concerns. We do quite a bit of advocacy. So changing our own personal behaviors is important and necessary, and not enough, as I'm sure you all are aware. So we need to do the collective work, right? So we need to do a lot of advocacy to get policies changed so that we can live as a community, a society here in Oregon, in the United States, and in our global community in a way that is sustainable. So for the last couple of legislative sessions in Oregon, we've had an Oregon Interfaith Power and Light advocacy team, We also do some national lobbying with our federal legislators, with other interfaith power and light groups in other states. So I didn't mention yet, but Interfaith Power and Light is a national group that has chapters in various states. So we're the Oregon chapter, and there are chapters all over the country, as well as a national group that that helps coordinate all the chapters. So we work with them to lobby at the federal level. And here in Oregon, we've been part of many of the coalitions in the last several years that have formed around environmental issues. So we were part of Renew Oregon and the Oregon Clean Energy Opportunities Campaign. I forgot the word opportunities, but the OCO campaign last year that helped pass the 100% clean energy bill and some other bills. And we're also part of the Divest Oregon Coalition right now, which I know I think SOCAN is part of as well. And so you might be aware of their work, but we're helping lead the legislative and policy work of that coalition to try to get our state treasury to divest from fossil fuels. So faith communities can be helpful in advocacy because we are able to, we have, congregations all over the state that are in various districts, which is helpful in finding people to speak to legislators from a variety of places. And we speak with kind of a different voice than a lot of times legislators are used to hearing about environmental issues. So we're not necessarily kind of your normal environmental group. We're people of faith who are saying, based on the moral perspective of my tradition, it's important to me to care for the place, the land and the other creatures. And so that's a little bit different than what they often hear from other environmental groups. So I think faith communities can have an interesting space and share an interesting perspective that isn't shared by other advocacy groups necessarily. And I think we can also, like I said, help draw from all over the state because we have people around the state. With Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, we have about 15 denominations with their congregations all over the state that are part of our group, and then over 600 congregations and faith-based organizations. And also with our Oregon Interfaith Power and Light, we have interfaith partners as well in different parts of the state. So we're able to draw from those folks and speak what we're hearing from them from across the state, as well as give them advocacy opportunities as we're speaking up about various bills, and particularly trying to focus on the justice issues, the environmental racism, and the concerns that are very present with making sure that everybody is treated equitably and economically viable solutions are being put forward that help the most vulnerable Oregonians rather than making things worse. So that's kind of what we try to focus on with our advocacy. And then for action, we have programs and types of actions that people can take with their congregations, such as becoming a cool congregation. That's a program of the National Interfaith Power and Light Group. There are also green certification programs that various denominations and faith traditions have for people from their faith tradition to be involved in. We have partnerships with groups that help plant native species or edible plants on community grounds. So, planting things that are, pollinators or whatever that faith community is interested in planting on their grounds. Those can be green spaces that contribute to the community resilience and health of the community. We work with the Oregon Clean Power Cooperative to help nonprofits and faith-based organizations to get solar panels through an interfaith solar campaign. Congregations can do community gardens and support other local food initiatives. Some host farmers markets or things like that can help the community have a space to come together to have local food systems and food justice more prominently available in their region, and actions of advocacy at the local and governmental levels. So taking action outside of what we're doing advocacy wise, organizing at the state level, to do at the local level as well. And another action that we have been involved in that's a little bit more activist oriented, we went to the Treaty People Gathering last June, and that was to ask President Biden to stop the Line 3 pipeline, which didn't happen, but you know, we could stop it any day. We would still be glad if that happened. But we organized and fundraised for getting a bunch of people there from Oregon. We rented a couple of vans and helped other people's cars be able to make it out there and join the Treaty People Gathering that the Anishinaabe people invited people to join, and in Minnesota. And there were about 2,000 people at that gathering last June, and about 400 of them were participating as a multi-faith delegation organized by Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light and an organization called Green Faith. So we helped to organize that, and we participated in a multi-faith gathering that was like a prayer circle at the beginning of the action, and really tried to partner with what the Anishinaabe wanted of this being a spiritually grounded action to call on the president to stop the Line 3 pipeline. So this has a few goals of supporting Indigenous rights and protecting all of our waterways. And also we were able to build relationships with activists here in Oregon by traveling out there. We connected with people and made strong relationships with those who went on that trip, and also people around the country. For us, as far as our multi-faith delegation, we connected with people of faith around the country from different Interfaith Power and Light groups and other groups that were participating, as well as other activists who were organizing this major event. So that was a good way to get involved with a lot of local people as well as people across the country, and to really stand alongside Indigenous people when they asked for us to come and support. So we are open to other things like that that are more local and have been involved in some of the local actions as well. And then for relationship building, we really try to help people to form deep relationships that can help them to stay encouraged in this work. As you all know, it's important to feel connected to other people, and like you're part of a community doing this work, so you don't feel alone. So we encourage congregations to have green teams, or they have different names for them in different congregations, but something that is a team working on environment and climate issues. And then we have green circles at the state level. We have one statewide circle encouraging regional people to get to know each other. And so every month we have a Green Circles gathering with a topic, and usually a speaker, somebody to share a story of the work that they're doing in their community, and some advocacy information, ways to take action that month, and time to get to know each other. So we have a one-to-one time and a team time during that Green Circles gathering. So that's something that we offer at the state level that green teams can be involved in, or individuals across the state who don't have people in their own faith community to participate with, but at least they have people around the state to participate with. So if you're thinking about working with faith communities, I wanted to give some ideas of ways you could do that if you're interested in looking around and seeing what faith communities in your area might be interested in doing some collaborative work with you. So if you're thinking about how would we go about this, one idea is to invite them to things, invite them to events, or work together on doing an action when there's a big faith community event. So this is an example here of last Friday, the Unitarian Universalists were having their General Assembly in Portland, which is like a nationwide gathering of all the Unitarians in Portland. And so they partnered with Youth versus ODOT, which is a Sunrise PDX action that they're doing on a regular basis. And so the Unitarians partnered with Youth versus ODOT and had a rally on Friday. And so that was a good way to support and amplify the work of these youth in Portland who are doing this good work to stop freeway expansion, and also to let the Unitarians kind of know more about climate justice work in this area, in this region. So, so that's an example. There are a lot of places where I've heard of, Earth Month activities that are being organized by groups such as yours, and they invite churches to have a table or bring whatever, craft or something that kids can do or things like that. So invite them to join in whatever action you're planning. There were also during Earth Month this year, a lot of Jewish communities did street seders that were focused on banks, and they were calling for people to move your dough and holding up their matzah bread. And so those were great events to participate in. I got to go to the one in Portland, and there was also one in Eugene, and there were actions all over the country at Chase banks and other banks where that are funding fossil fuel projects. So those are some ideas of ways that you can partner either in joining events that faith communities are doing or inviting faith communities to your events. You can also collaborate on local projects and advocacy at the city or county levels. And so this is a really exciting partnership that I learned about, that the DC and Maryland Interfaith Power and Light group did with some local other environmental groups in their area. And they got these methane monitors and checked for methane leaks all over their city. And so they particularly focused on places where the city councilors lived and tested where the methane leaks were in the neighborhoods around their city councilors, so that their city councilors are looking at the map and going, whoa, there's so much methane leaking right around me and I didn't even know it. So so a lot of the congregations in that area brought people out to do this kind of canvassing and testing in the street, as you can see, and in people's homes. So it was great for the local groups, environmental groups, to partner with churches that had congregations in those neighborhoods, so they could get a bunch of kind of citizen scientists involved. So they made this great report. I can put a link to that in the chat later on, so you can see that report, and presented it to the city council as they were trying to decide what they were going to do about kind of reconstructing their natural gas pipes in the city, and whether or not to invest a bunch of money in that. So so that was a recent example of a way that community environmental groups and faith groups are partnering to do some really important work. Some smaller types of things would be, I know you all have like a sustainability plan, but in Ashland, at least, I don't know about other places where you all live, but partnering with faith communities in your town to bring forward a climate plan or sustainability plan for your city. It can be a good way to bring people to a city council meeting to get some of the people on a green team in one of your town's congregations to say, hey, can you get people to show up to the city council meeting, and they can do the organizing with the people in their congregation who they know might be interested in showing up for that. So it can be a good way to get some pretty big numbers for city council meetings or other things like that at your local level. All right. Another way of working with faith communities is that a lot of faith communities have meeting spaces and land that's available and that they want to use. A lot of them want to use as a way to help their neighborhoods and be involved in their neighborhoods. And so so I think that that it's great to be able to partner with local congregations who maybe they have a huge amount of lawn that they just have to mow all the time, and maybe they want to turn it into a community garden or something. So this is a congregation in McMinnville, and it's McMinnville Cooperative Ministries, which is actually two congregations. I think they're Lutherans and Methodists that joined together to do McMinnville Cooperative Ministries, and so they are worshiping together in one building. So that meant they had another property that they weren't using anymore. So they turned all of that land into a community garden, and they've also been during the heat events and really cold snaps that we've had, hosting people in their building and providing meals. And so providing that kind of space in climate emergencies. And congregations can also be really useful places to hold meetings if you don't have a meeting space for a group or an event that you're wanting to do, and finding a congregation in the town that has that cares about climate issues and say, hey, can we use your community room or whatever they call it for this event? And so seeing if they're open to that kind of partnership. There's a congregation in Portland called Salt and Light Lutheran that really does this intentionally, of working with the neighborhood to work towards making sure that they're kind of helping revitalize that community, providing space for people to do entrepreneurial small businesses that are beneficial to the local economy and that are focused on sustainability, and also making their congregational space available for community meetings and stuff like that. So this is something that some congregations are really trying intentionally to do, and that some might be interested in doing if you ask them. And then clergy and other people of faith are sometimes interested in being involved in nonviolent direct actions and other types of more public witness activism like that. So these two images are, this is the Church of England action that maybe you saw in last August 2021, where a bunch of Christian activists took over this Church of England sanctuary and asked for divestment of the Church of England's funds from fossil fuels. And so you've got all these police officers coming in there and arresting the activists, which was a pretty powerful public witness. And then these clergy, all these different clergy from different faith traditions sitting here along this pipeline in Massachusetts a few years back. Was a pretty powerful visual. So this can be a way to kind of draw attention where it's not just sort of, people that you can write off as like, oh, those like, whatever your stereotype of the tree hugger environmentalist maybe, that it looks a little different to get clergy out there or other folks that look a little different from your normal environmentalists. So that's a way that you can work with faith communities at times. And so just as I wrap up here, to suggest a few ways, if you want to get involved in our work here in Oregon, you're welcome to sign up for our Creation Justice e-newsletter. And I believe these are all linked on the website for SOCAN. And you can join our OIPL advocacy team or our green circles. Those are completed for this year since we've already had the legislative session, and the green circles goes through the school year, but you can sign up for those and then you'll get information when we start them up again next year. You can contact me and meet and discuss ideas for your faith community if you have one, or how you might get connected to faith communities in your region if you don't have one. And there's also an event coming up in October that is through an international organization called Green Faith that we like to collaborate with, because they do kind of global days or weeks of action. So it's fun to participate in those and see people all over the whole planet doing events and showing their support for caring for the planet from people of faith perspective. So that's called Faiths for Climate Justice. And that's October 2nd through 9th this fall. And it's really focused on drawing attention to the Conference of the Parties number 27 this year, which will be in Egypt in November. So doing actions with local importance and connected to global issues. So if that's something that you're interested in working on, then you can plan something with the people of faith in your area, and have something during that week that is connected to that global action. So those are the things that I would suggest. I see that Kathy and Alan asked me to talk about the Earth Bill. This is something that we have been kind of tangentially involved in, as that my colleague Kelly has been more involved than I have, but we have been supporting the work that has been done with a coalition of people around the state, working on a comprehensive Earth Bill that would be really great as far as kind of putting together all the pieces of the types of policies that we would need to have in place to really move into a sustainable framework for our government. So, so I don't know if Kathy or Alan, you have more that you would like to say about that, but I think what I would say is that because we have some administrative capacity and some connections to legislators, we're able to hold an important space in conversations like that of, I think, offering a Zoom space and being able to convene groups like that that are able to do important work to really think through what policies would look like, contact the right people, and get things off the ground. That we're not necessarily leading it, but we're able to kind of provide that space that can pull people together from a variety of different groups. So I don't know if you want to say any more about that, but that's what I would say about the Earth Bill at this point. So I think that's all for what I would say about it, and I'd be interested in hearing, or hearing in the chat, any questions that you have about this work and how to connect in with what faith communities are doing on climate and environment.
Great. So I'm Lori Kaplan. I want to thank Charisse. Wow, this was such a great presentation. I'm feeling really excited about everything that you shared, and I'm going to be moderating the chat tonight. So if anyone could put their questions in the chat, and I'll be on the lookout. I just want to say, I think you offered quite a bit for for people who are not in a faith community to engage and kind of broaden our circle, as well as those of us who are in faith communities, how we might intersect our traditions with this work. And I find that really exciting that there's just so many different ways that this could play out, and that each community can find their own path through this based on what resonates for them. So I guess just to lead off while we're waiting for others to share their, everybody wants to see the slides. This is a great presentation. That in the course of your work, are you feeling like there's momentum, that there's more and more communities that are getting involved in this work and looking through this lens?
Yeah, I think there are. I think part of what there is momentum in is kind of finding each other and being able to network together. So part of the relational work that I do is, in addition to connecting people across the state, is doing one-to-one meetings with people in different places and finding out what they're working on. And then I know, okay, these are the people in this area of the state who are working on things, and they know these people that they connect me to. And so, so it kind of, I've been in this role for about 2.5 years. So, so I'm getting to know more people and find out who's doing this work and get more connected. So I think there are a lot of people out there who want to do something, but maybe don't know where to start, and they care about this and feel like it's something that is important as a person of faith to work on sustainability and environmental justice, but they don't know what to do. So so then when they find out, oh, there are other people working on whatever that they're interested in, advocacy, if that's their thing. Or we did I didn't even talk about, we did a book group reading the book Becoming Rooted: 100 Days of Reconnecting with Sacred Earth by an Indigenous author here in Oregon, Randy Woodley. And so we did that the 100 days leading up to Earth Day this year. So people got really interested in that, and we had a Lent devotional that went along with that for Christians, and so things like that, that like some people will enter in through a book, or we do a film screening every Earth Month through Interfaith Power and Light. So some people enter in through that. So, there are different things that different people get excited about and realize, oh, I can do this thing. And then that's a first step that then leads to further steps.
Yeah, and I know you said this earlier, but so if I'm listening to this tonight, and or in the future on YouTube, and I think, yeah, I want to take that first step. What's the very first step?
I think that setting up a time to talk with me would be a good first step, and finding out the types of things that you're interested in. So, what gets you really excited, and having a conversation with me about that, or with whoever that you know in your congregation. I think it's also really important to have people in your life that you can have a community with, and so I really encourage people to have at least at least a 2 or 3 person green team that they can
Right.
take action with at their congregational level.
Yeah, I always think about a stool that if you have at least 3 legs, you can stand and you can sit. So that's the beginning of a movement, So Philip Bertram says, one community I was involved in included addressing inner climate, the process of moving from hopelessness to awareness to action for each individual. And I want to build on that, with the work of Catherine Hayhoe, who has been really, I think, transformational for so many of us. This idea also of just moving away from paralysis, the fear that so many people have, and also the power of talking about climate change, as being a really good first step too, and just kind of normalizing it, depoliticizing it, perhaps, turning it into something that we talk about. Do you have a comment on what Philip said about the inner climate?
Yeah, I think that is really important, especially when we start feeling kind of overwhelmed and we feel really deep grief and maybe despair. That those are states of being or emotions that are very human to feel, but we can get stuck there. And so I really appreciate also Joanna Macy's work on hope, and so I appreciated from her and from some other research that I did on hope, that despair is hope that is not taking action. So you can move from despair to hope by taking a step in the direction you want to go. So you might still feel really sad and frustrated and angry and upset about climate issues, but you're moving towards hope when you start taking a step in that direction. So despair is just hope that is inactive. So I like that it's not that you're just kind of stuck at the opposite end from hope when you're feeling despair, but you're hoping for something, right? You're hoping for a world renewed, and you just don't see a way to get there. And so the way to get there is to start taking steps.
Yeah, and I think this idea, and I do encourage other people to send chats in, but we have a couple minutes that we can keep talking, and I'll keep using it until we have to stop, or till Kathy tells me to stop. I think that having connections with other human beings too, so I can work to identify my own values and align my behavior with my values, and then connecting with other people on that. And one of the things that Yale Center for Climate Communications talked about in the presentation they did for SOCIAN last year is how this is really tragic, and kind of odd to mention perhaps this week, but that in some ways climate change has become even more polarized than the topic of abortion. So this is like a third rail topic that families and communities feel that they can't talk about. So finding strategies to make connections around our concern and break through that communications barrier and connect with other people is really powerful. Does that resonate for you, or how do you thinking about that?
Yeah, it resonates in terms of it being kind of a litmus test, and in a lot of faith communities, it's pretty divisive to talk about. So it really depends on the faith community. I've been talking about faith communities that are like really committed and engaged in climate action, but there are a lot for whom, climate denial is their preferred way. And so that's a challenge. I think for people of faith, it can be helpful to have a common language of, we care about the same things. We have the same sort of theology and basis of beliefs. And so out of our spiritual text or whatever a particular community of faith has that holds them together, this is how I see climate being part of what it means to me to be a person of faith. So that's something for me that's been helpful, but not in sort of a polemic way, but more of like a heart way of care and some research about what communicates well to is about the gift of creation, the gift of this planet that we have that we share, and so kind of opening up people's emotional connection and spiritual connection rather than kind of shutting them down by thinking of more of a hedonistic or individualistic way of thinking, where it's like if we're sharing with other people, I won't get enough. Kind of thinking about the opening up that space of care and gratitude and awe can be helpful in those conversations.
That's very powerful. Thank you. We do have a couple more things in the chat that I just want to point out before I turn it over to Kathy. Brian Romer says a great book he recommends on this topic, A Spirituality of Resistance, Finding a Peaceful Heart and Protecting the Earth by Roger Gottlieb. Charisse is nodding. And Flavia Franco says an example of interfaith direct action. She shared a photo taken in Ukraine a few years ago. Has really grabbed me. I'm not going to open it myself while I'm on screen here, but so you might want to check that out as well. So I want to thank you, Charisse. This has been just everything I was hoping for in terms of this presentation. Just very inspiring, and it does give me hope and new ideas to go forward. So thank you so much. And thank you for everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, who's going to tell us about all the things that are coming up next with SOCAN.
I'm going to start with letting Estelle make a comment about some local action that's going on.
Yes, there are many members of the local faith communities who are often engaged in our more public actions. But last fall, a few faith groups got together and had a vigil down at the county courthouse. In April, there was a showing of the film Kiss the Ground on regenerative agriculture. And there was a film that I think the Interfaith Power and Light film this year in April was Youth v. Gov about the Children's Trust. So there are some beginnings of people trying to get together from different faith communities in the Rogue Valley. And it's kind of on hiatus for a month or two while one of the co-leaders is traveling. But if you would like to get connected with this group, you can contact Rick Bonetti, who's here on the Zoom, and leave your name and comments, and you can get notified when the local group starts meeting up again.
Thank you, Estelle. And we don't have it on our information tonight, but SOCAN is going to have one of the attorneys from our Children's Trust for the August monthly meeting. So if you're interested in Youth v. Gov or the work of our Children's Trust, you might be interested in joining us for that meeting. It'll be the end of August. So Again, we've mentioned the action page, and to find that, if you do socan.eco/action, and then you'll see there are two columns. One is collective action. So we've created a heading, faith-based /interfaith. And if you follow the link, then that'll have different information that Charisse talked about, links. Estelle has worked really hard to put things together. And so there's quite a bit of information there. And if Charisse is willing to share her slides, we'll put the link to those on that page as well. So my charge is to share with you things that SOCAN is doing and also other groups in the area that are related to climate change. On SOCAN's web page, socan.eco, you can sign up for our monthly reminder and our monthly broadcast. And usually they're 2 a month. And sometimes if something exciting is happening, we'll send a third one. But on the right-hand side, you just put in your name and email and zip code. And you can always unsubscribe if you decide it's not what you wanted. But we put everything in there we know that's going on in the area. So the next set of things I'm going to talk about are different events, and these are all on our socan.eco/events on our calendar. You can get details if you miss them as we go through things. The first I want to mention is SOCAN yesterday, today, and tomorrow. SOCAN is turning 10 years old this September. We're very excited. We're going to have an anniversary celebration. Bill McKibben is going to join us on Zoom for some comments, and the program will be, the master ceremonies will be Pam Marsh and Jeff Golden. So this is September 17th at 5 p.m. It's at the Hilton Garden Inn in Medford. And if you want more information about this, there's some on the calendar, but also socan.eco/anniversary is where we're putting the information. So SOCAN has 5 different programs: community engagement, education, government, natural resources, and transportation. And then we have projects that are under each of those. Some of those projects are meeting on a regular basis, and some do things kind of behind the scenes. So July 4th is the parade in Ashland, and we're excited. It's back after 2 years of being resting. So if you want to join us for the parade, we line up at 9 o'clock and the parade starts at 10. The details are on the website, but we line up across from the music building at SOU, and we ask people to wear their SOCAN shirt, or if you're part of the Master Climate Protector, wear your gray shirt. And it's always a lot of fun to get together, and it's a very responsive audience. So it's a fun thing to do. The walking is just over a mile and it's all downhill. So it's a fairly easy walk. SOCAN at Mountain Meadows is back, meeting Tuesday, July 5th at 2 p.m. That's an in-person meeting, and that's at Mountain Meadows Jefferson Room. And again, details are on the calendar. Next month's monthly meeting is going to be on hydrogen. You may have heard about it, may not know much about it. We think you need to know more. Useful tool or fossil industry ruse. So that's Tuesday the 26th. That'll be on Zoom. You need to register for that. And again, the link is on the calendar. I'd like to continue to recognize the sponsors of the Master Climate Protector program. This is part of our education program. That course will be offered again in February of 2023. And these are the sponsors that help support that program. The government group has several projects. When the county city will meet on Thursday, July 28th, from 1 to 2:30, and there's information about that in the calendar. There are action teams that are part of that county city group. The Medford action team will meet on Friday, July 1st. That'll be Zoom. The Jacksonville group that meets in person will not be meeting in July. The federal and state project is not going to meet in July, and neither is the forest and fire project. So if you wonder why we're not meeting, Kathy and Alan are going to take a few weeks off. So we're going to put some things on hold for a few weeks.
You had Dorothy.
Other projects in education, transportation, natural resources, and community engagement. Liz, do you want to come on and mention sustaining climate activists?
Sure. The group met again for the first time in about a year this last Saturday out at Blue Heron Park, and really enjoyed getting together again. And so we're going to resume meeting. We'll meet outdoors once a month on the 4th Saturday of the month. And that will be July 23rd, the next one. It's not on the calendar yet. Ken Devaney and I are facilitating. We've just decided it. So you can look on the calendar in a week or so, and hopefully we'll have some information up.
Thank you, Liz. SOCAN also has a leadership circle. It meets every other month. The next meeting is Wednesday, July 13th. This is composed of leaders of the different projects. But if anybody is interested in joining us, it gives you a good idea of the different things that are happening within SOCAN, and you're invited to join us. And that link is on the calendar. So other groups, these are things we know about. Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance Community is sponsoring the Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit. And the first of those conversations will be November 14th, and it'll be a series of 6 conversations. Southern Oregon Citizens Climate Lobby will meet July 9th at 10 a.m. That's in person at Pony Espresso in Washington Federal Bank, and Dylan Hinson is the contact if you want more information about that one. Sustainable Rogue Valley has their monthly meeting on Sunday, July 10th, and that's going to be a hybrid. So I want to know how that one goes. So some in person and some on Zoom. So whatever your format, you're welcome to join that group for that meeting. An OLLI class starting September, climate pollution in Southern Oregon. Alan will be teaching that, and it will be offered via Zoom. So you have to sign up for that through OLLI if you're interested. ROCPAC, our Rural Oregon Climate Political Action Committee, is looking to the next legislative session. So if you have ideas or can be financially helpful, the link is there for ROCPAC. I'd like to finish with a very big thank you, Charisse, for sharing. Really appreciate your insight and hope that people have ideas on how they might become more engaged. Thanks to Estelle and Lori, and Ken Devaney also helped in making this presentation possible. So thanks to you for making all the arrangements. And thanks to everyone for joining us. Really important to learn things happening. And as we always say, don't forget to take action. Again, socan.eco/action, and then look for the collective action to see links and ideas. A survey was sent to you on email if you registered before 10 o'clock today. Hopefully you'll fill that out. It only takes a couple minutes, but it helps us as we do our programs. SOCAN website is socan.eco. If there's things that went by too fast, you want more information, want connections, you can send an email to info@socan.eco and we'll get it to the right person. And if you're able and can consider making a donation, we always appreciate that. It helps us keep going. So thank you very much for being here this evening. And Alan has,
No, I'm just waiting.
Alan's waving. So thank you. I'm going to stop.